morning, everybody. It's 8:30. We'll call this morning's meeting to order. The first item we have is the approval of the agenda, and I do want to just point something out here, Steve. On the consent agenda, there's the annual county feedlot report. Things like that, I think this year it'd be nice to be able to get a direct report from them for our new commissioners. Maybe what we can do is we can have that when we hear from the Soil and Water on their report. But years ago, there was a lot of controversy regarding the feedlots, and so I think it would be good for our new commissioner to be able to hear directly from our agent who's working on our behalf now. So with that, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Any citizens to be heard this morning? Steve, anybody on the line?
We have none, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, we will move into the approval of the bills and vouchers.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Ebbinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Approval of minutes from January 12th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion from Commissioner Gross, second from Commissioner Cayley. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. It's 8:35, and we're going to move into our annual treatment court update. Good morning, Judge Lawson.
Good morning,
And Don, good morning.
Commissioners.
And you had the opportunity, you swore our two new commissioners in, so you.
I did.
Yes.
This is my second trip here this
There you
year.
go.
So it's awesome to be back. It's
Well,
great
welcome,
to be in
yeah.
front of you all. Happy New Year again. Again, I'm Michelle Lawson. I'm a judge here in Clay County. This is Don Kautzman. He is the coordinator of our Clay Becker Treatment Court. We're here today to give you an annual update for the new commissioners. We update the board every year as it relates to the great work our court is doing, and to come and thank you all for your support. The Clay County Board has supported us financially since our court began in 2007. And that support does not go unnoticed. Janelle Cheney from the Department of Corrections wanted to be here today. She could not be. She had a conflict. She did send me a little email yesterday, so I'll just read a little snippet from that because I think she stated DOC's opinion of treatment court in a really succinct and great way, which is no surprise coming from Janelle. And I hope Mr. Melton is here with us today too, because his office is an invaluable part of our treatment court team. So with that, Don, as he always does, prepared a summary of our budget and our expenses and our statistics, which are awesome. Our Veterans Court has been very low census, really, since we started. Our numbers have not ever in Veterans Court been what we had initially hoped they would be. For the information of the new commissioners, when we were kind of gathering data as it relates to Veterans Court, we were at a time when there was more justice system involved veterans, we believe, because of the fact that we had a local unit that was coming back after a deployment, and we think our numbers were a little higher than they normally are. That's a big reason for the low census numbers. Another reason is initially we might not have been doing as good a job of gathering the data so that we could properly identify them. We've been working on that consistently as it relates to our Veterans Treatment Court. So don't let those low numbers fool you, though. Even though the numbers are very low in terms of the people that come into the program, the impact as it relates to our program on those folks that come in is tough to describe. Really the best way for you to understand the impact of our treatment court, and ask Commissioner Gross, come to a graduation. They're awesome. And we actually have one virtual tomorrow. I'm sure Don has sent that link out as an invite. You are all always invited to come to our court. You're always especially invited to come to our graduation to see the great impact that our program that you contribute to has on the individuals that live in this community. So that's just the introduction. I turn over the bean counting and the people counting to the brains of the operation, which is Don.
Good morning. Before I get into the handouts that you all have, I just, as you can imagine, we've had a very unique year in our treatment court with the pandemic. We have not had in-person hearings now for months, but what we've been doing is having hearings via Zoom for all the participants. And so we have a Zoom link that they all go into for court, and we have all of them on at the same time with the judge and the team. So the participants are able to see each other and hear each other and can continue to be a support system for each other. We didn't want to lose that, when we had to give up the in-person hearings. So it hasn't been ideal, but I think we've done a good job of adjusting and keeping the program going to everyone's benefit. You can see I've got the program statistics for you all. We currently have 22 participants in our program, which is a little lower than our usual average, but only by about 3 people. So I expect those numbers will even out over the course of the year. You can see a break it down by the demographic data. We currently have 16 men, 6 women. We've had 48 participants who have been terminated from the program unsuccessfully since we started in 2007. And we have had 99 graduates total. So tomorrow will be our 100th graduate from drug court, which is pretty exciting. And I haven't sent out the email invitation yet, but I will send it out and include all of you on it. You can see from the stats of our 99 graduates, 98 of them were employed at the time they graduated, and 1 was a full-time student. 49 obtained their driver's licenses while they were in our program. The others already had theirs. And everyone who was required to pay child support was current on their child support payments when they graduated. They had all been clean and sober for at least a year. We have that requirement in our program. They have to be sober, have 1 year sobriety before they can graduate. And they all completed a community service project of a minimum of 50 hours. We've had, in the life of our program, 22 graduates have reoffended in the 13 years. 22 out of 99, though, I think is a pretty successful rate. Yeah, exactly. So that's far better than the recidivism rates for people who don't go into treatment court.
Sorry. Yeah. I won't repeat that.
If I had a nickel for every time I tell people, you're muted, I'd be rich. So happens all the time.
I usually leave mine on, but for some reason
And then you can see too, I have the Veterans Court information separately. We're considered, with the state of Minnesota, we're one treatment court with 2 separate tracks, a drug court track and a Veterans Treatment Court track. So we keep our data separate for each. And we currently have 2 participants in the Veterans Court. We've had 6 participants who were unsuccessfully terminated from the program, and we've had 7 graduates in the program, and none of those graduates have reoffended. And then I've just included some of the budget numbers. You can see basically our expenses are almost unchanged from last year. Hardly any difference at all. We did lose some funding this year from what we had last year. So there we have about a $20,000 shortfall now, but that's actually not uncommon. In the time I've been doing this, we often have changes to our funding streams, and I'm pretty optimistic we're going to be able to find either grant funding or another funding source with the state that will allow us to plug that gap.
Commissioner Mojuet.
I have a question in regards to where the loss of revenue came from.
Yeah, so we've lost about $20,000 this year from, we had been getting supervision fees from the DOC. They were contributing that, and this year they're not certain that they'll be able to to contribute that again.
Thank you.
But that's, in a nutshell, I guess that's the update for treatment court this year. I want to thank all of you again for your support ever since we started the program. The support of the county has been a key to our success and our ability to keep the program going. So we really appreciate it and can't thank you enough. So.
Well, now that my mic is back on, I'll kind of repeat the fact that I've been very supportive of this since Judge Lawson, you first brought this to us. And, you know, the fact that we're seeing close to 80% of our people that are in this program become productive citizens and are not repeating offenses, I think is fantastic. It's worth every nickel that we're investing in it. And I want to thank you for your leadership in the whole thing, Judge. It's been great. And I certainly will be supporting the 2021-2022 request to keep this program going. So that's yes. Commissioner Ebinger.
Yes. My prior life as police chief in this community makes me familiar with where our problems lie. And the biggest problem I think we can look at right now in the micro, things we can control. We can't get everybody a job. We can't equalize income. We can't do all the things that contribute to the problems we've got. But one of the things we can do is help people deal with their addiction. And, you know, that's basic in helping people get out of a cycle that puts them in our jails and puts them in our prisons. And this has been, since I've come here, this has been an effective means of doing it. And I think for every dollar we invest within our community, within the families that are impacted, within the Department of Corrections, within our own correctional facility, within the need to staff law enforcement to respond to calls, staff the courts, do all the costs that we pour tons of money into to pull people off the street and put them in jail. This puts them back out on the street as productive tax-paying citizens who are there for their family. Can't say enough about how we need to keep this going. So whatever we can do, I think, is money well spent.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our community was clear when we were building our new jail that they didn't want a jail, they wanted a correctional facility. We were intentional about providing mental health services in that space and additional help for folks. And this is just an extension of what we heard from the community, is to continue to support a program like this, that they're not just numbers on a page. Yes, 100 graduates is a big number. It's a larger number if you think about them in a daily jail system or even in a prison, the monthly per diem that costs. But I've attended a few of these graduations, and they are incredibly powerful. They make you kind of even look back at your life to make sure you're living something intentional and worthwhile. But the one that speaks to me, and I probably say this every year, is I watched a young man's graduation and heard his tough story and his intentional acts to get back on track, and then a few months later saw him with his business working in our community. And it really does help folks that need an extra hand, need an extra guidance. And like Commissioner Ebinger said, they become productive citizens in our society. And I do think this is really worthwhile. And if you talk to other counties around the state, they're almost jealous that we have this, and it's such a great thing. And so I commend you for your work and all that you do for this. I really appreciate it.
Well, other courts around the state are jealous of us because we have local support. And that's because you all support us all the time. And surprisingly, most treatment courts can't say that. So, thank you.
Their problem.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Gross.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Commissioner Gross.
We'll get to you next.
And they serve pizza or cake after.
There's that.
So, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just say to join in what a lot of others have already said, but I think really it has to go to the fact that Don and Judge Lawson's leadership that has really driven this thing long-term, the support of law enforcement, the support of the county attorney's office, and support of commissioners. I mean, both as a funding source coming from the county, but as well as forfeiture funds to make sure that we can keep this program going. I think just as Commissioner Mojo said, we have a lot of issues that were within the county that, whether it's mental health issues, drug addiction issues, and a lot of times they combine with themselves, people that are self-medicating that have a lot of mental health problems, and looking at those individuals and trying to help those individuals work to help them become productive citizens. As well as, I think the biggest thing that we have to say and point out is this is no cakewalk. Anybody that always talks to me and says, well, why are we doing this? And, why are these people getting over? And that's really not the case at all. This is 10 times hard. It'd be easy to go to jail or go to prison and sit in there for the next 2 years and work off their sentence that way. And some end up doing that. I mean, some that can't get through the program. But, this is a hardcore program that requires a lot of responsibility, has a lot of monitoring, making sure that they're clean and sober, that they're getting a job, they're getting a house or getting an apartment. All those things to get them on the right track, both from the veteran side and the drug court side. So I think it just has to go to point out again that this is a very productive program. It helps people become productive citizens, and the leadership that we've seen from both Don and Judge Lawson is greatly appreciated.
Those are great comments. Thank you. I know your graduations are on those Wednesdays, and I've had an opportunity, and when I could, I would be there. Unfortunately, now every time you have it, it conflicts with one of my other committees that I have to be at. So I feel bad about not being there, but I can tell you from what I've seen, the pride that those people have in their accomplishments are really amazing. And they're ready to go. They're ready to go out in the community, and they're ready to be good citizens and like we talked about earlier, productive. And so it's an amazing program. And for those counties that aren't doing it, they should get on board.
And their accomplishments are amazing.
Yes.
Like Brian said, it's no cakewalk. It is hard work. And I loved, Commissioner Campbell, how you took that 22% or 22 people who have reoffended and looked at the glass as being, an 80% success rate, because that is 80% of our participants.
Right.
We're not paying for them to be in prison. We're not paying them to be on public assistance. We're not paying for their children to be in foster care. We are getting revenue because they're out in the community with their businesses. And, that's what you can measure. And the investment comes back. It's one of the best. If we could personally make that investment, you bet every single one of us would take it every single time. But what you can't measure, and what is as important, if not more important than that, is parents get their children back. Yeah. Children get their parents back. You get your friends back. You get your family members back. There have been, most folks that come into our program have very fractured relationships with the people closest to them. And by the time they graduate, those folks are sitting right next to them at graduation, cheering them on. And frankly, that's something you can't put a price tag on, so.
It's very easy to take a negative number and dwell on it. But it's always better to take the positive number and dwell on that, so that's.
And before we wrap up, I did tell Janelle that I would speak for
Yes,
her today,
yes,
and I
please
just
do.
want to say, she said, what I would offer is that our department continues to support and find value in the Clay County Specialty Court and the ability of one of our staff to have a smaller caseload size, allowing for a heightened interaction and engagement of support and services. And she basically, to summarize the rest, she said she wholeheartedly supports the program. She thinks it makes an incredible impact in our community, and they're proud to be part of our team.
All right, well, if something develops during the course of the year, come back and see us if you need our assistance.
Yeah, thanks for having us, and thanks again for your support.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Kathy, our update on COVID-19. Kathy and Jamie, two very, very busy people here. I'm glad you have the time to come and visit with us.
Yes.
Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Yes, we are not short of work, that is for sure. Sorry, I can't even talk to my county administrator because it's just maybe 10 o'clock at night. So our numbers, I've handed out the numbers that we currently have. And, you know, if you remember, I'm sorry, I didn't attach the numbers from last week, but we're staying pretty steady in regards to not increasing in large number of cases, which is great. So we're keeping the caseloads. You know, the active case is 136 in Clay County. That's great. And then the cumulative cases, 6,606. Minnesota, it's 455, 783. So those are, they're staying, we're keeping them at a steady and decreased rates. The number of deaths, we have 84 in Clay County. And then Minnesota at 6,098. And the out of isolation is, again, the numbers that people have recovered from COVID, and then our out of isolation, 6,329 in Clay County, which gives us the active cases of 136. And out of isolation in Minnesota for 439,283. So they have 10,402 active cases. So we're doing well with our preventative measures. You know, we're still, you know, the masking, the social distancing, avoiding the large crowds, including, you know, funerals and weddings, which is still hard for people to understand. And then we talk about, you know, be careful about your travel, especially international travel. We, you know, with the variant strains out there now, that Minnesota's watching, we have to be careful about being conscientious about whether that is necessary or not. ICU and hospitalizations are remaining pretty well across the state of Minnesota and also in Fargo. So as we meet with Sanford and Essentia, they're managing the numbers. They're really at a pretty even keel, and they have the number of staff, as I mentioned before. So there's a lot of staff that, for a while, there was such a shortage of staff to take care of these, those particularly in the COVID unit. But we're really doing a really good job, so we really are watching the hospitalizations as well. So we're doing well. Our 14-day case rate per 10,000 people is 36.15. So that's really a good rate when we were way over 100 at one point. So we're you know, we're optimistic, but we also know that this is a virus, so we have to be conscientious about we're not done yet. And so, you know, we continue the measures, and of course now we have a little bit of vaccine, so we're getting it out as quickly as we can, and Jamie will talk more about our vaccination process and clinics. We're getting out what we're getting, and I'll let her talk more about that. You can see the numbers are people with at least one dose, 2,204. And again, remember that those that, individuals from Clay County that work in healthcare systems in North Dakota would not be included in this number. So there's others that are working in Fargo that would have been vaccinated because they work in the healthcare systems, and that would have been a vaccination through their healthcare system. So those would not be included in the number of at least getting one dose. So you know, it's a little bit deceiving when you think about the numbers are higher. People with a completed vaccine series is 302. Now, just a reminder that we are still in phase 1A, and so public health is tasked to finish phase 1A. So it's a bit different on the North Dakota side. They've moved to phase 1B, but again, they have 2 hospital systems that get quite a large quantity of vaccine. So they're able to get a lot more vaccine out to those. That's just in the Fargo and West Fargo side, but even across the state of North Dakota. So, and I'll stop there because I'll let Jamie talk more about that. And in the statewide numbers, people with at least one vaccine, 266,985 statewide. and people with a completed series, 67,436. So the number of doses that the state was supposed to receive, 871,650. They received 529,375. This is the Moderna vaccine, and then also the 153,300 that the federal pharmacy programs were distributing to long-term care. So the percentage of doses is only 49%, so the distribution needs to ramp up on those cases, getting that vaccine out. In the next page, I'll just continue with some of the data. The next page, cases reported per week. This is the graph that we showed last week as well, with the number of Clay County cases starting back in March when we started having our first case, and then how you can see the trend and you know, the number of cases really ramped up in the fall of 2020, and then now a decline again. The deaths per week, of course, we had a large number of deaths when we started the pandemic, which was unfortunate. There was a lot of assisted living and long-term care facilities that were impacted. So we saw a large number of deaths, then the decrease for a number of months, and then there was some increases again in deaths per week. And then the cumulative ages by age group. So we have both the cumulative cases and then the active cases by age group. So you can see the difference in the age ranges, but the active cases, you see it's still 15 to 19, 20 to 24, 30 to 34, kind of our top age ranges for the active cases. And that's in comparison to the cumulative cases that you see. And there's there's certainly other cases, other age ranges, they're all been impacted, but the 20 to 24 is the highest in our cumulative age category. And then the back page just is the hospitalizations and the trends for ICU, the number of folks. And for a while, even across Minnesota, there was pretty significant hospitalizations in people in ICU. So there was real concerns about, managing and what would they do if they were overwhelmed. But thankfully, they're at a pretty good pace. We say that lightly because we don't want to see the large numbers of hospitalizations, but they're managing at this point in time. And before I let Jamie jump in, I forgot to mention last week about our case investigators and contact tracers. I think, Mr. Chair, you had mentioned to bring that to the board's attention. So we are continuing with our case investigation and contact tracing. We hired variable hour staff, so we had I believe we have about 10 variable hour staff that were able to jump in when Minnesota Department of Health was really overwhelmed and they couldn't continue. So they reached out to local public health. We jumped in, added some staff, and were able to really manage a lot of the cases in Clay County in partnership with Minnesota Department of Health. We did receive funding based on what we were doing, and our total award amount for case investigation, contact tracing, and this is for 4 counties, so it's Clay, Wilkin, Otter Tail, and Becker, our 4 CHB counties. We had $239,760 that were awarded to us. That was supposed to be spent by the end of December. So many of the counties did not hire extra staff. They just used their own internal staff as they could. I think Clay County took on a lot more because we hired additional variable hour staff, which was very helpful to do that. I think we had a good process. We have 88,362 left over, and the state informed us that we could carry that over. We anticipated that they would take that back. They hadn't decided, but they're allowing us to carry over if we're willing to continue the contact tracing case investigation. So that's the amount we have left.
Kathy, I think I reported probably during our committee reports at our board meeting last week about that, and based on that 88,000 and the percentage that Clay County had been using of the previous dollar amounts. I reported to the board, and I think we had talked about it with you, that you thought that that might get us through the first quarter of 2021. So that's been reported, and
Okay,
and so I think we're certainly on board with you continuing with what you've got going on with those tracers, and it's a good deal, so.
good. Okay, yeah, thank you. We're there.
Yeah, Commissioner Mosier wants.
Was that 88,000 for the CHB?
It is. It is. But our financial manager has determined, based on the trend that all the counties are using in our county, that we would have enough through March with what we have. So we can take on a lot more cases, and Minnesota Department of Health we anticipate that we can take all the cases in Clay County, and they can just follow up with some other counties that aren't doing as much locally. So we'll see after March how that looks and if there's additional funding.
Hopefully the amount of tracing will go down as we keep getting these vaccines out.
Yes.
Number is staying low, right? So that's the goal anyway, so. Yes, Commissioner Kaylee.
I heard on Minnesota Public Radio this morning that kids that are starting to go back to school, be they teens or college students, their families should consider encouraging them to be tested. And when we looked at your chart of active cases by age range, we can see that there are some big numbers there. So can you give us an update on the saliva testing? Is that still going on in the community? So as these families are considering getting their kids tested, they have the current information?
Sure, and actually I have the saliva, the number of tests from January 3rd through the week of January 17th. We've had 7,558 tests completed. And so the Minnesota residents, that saliva test site is still open to Minnesota and North Dakota. And again, just as a reminder, or maybe some of you don't know, North Dakota provided a lot of testing for Clay County residents. So we in turn requested from the state that North Dakota could also be part of this saliva testing. So they included the North Dakota residents as good partners for our metro area. So we have about 1,300 to 1,800 each week for the last 3 weeks that are Minnesota residents, and the rest of them are non-Minnesota residents. So there's still a fair number of people utilizing that testing site. What's great about that is they will collect insurance information, and they can bill the insurance, and so they can accept that as revenue to maintain this site, as well as the funding that initially was provided by Minnesota Department of Health. So that has helped to continue running this site, that they're able to bill insurance. There's no cost to individuals. So if they don't have an insurance plan, or the insurance doesn't cover, nobody will receive a bill. They're able to maintain that. We have not heard yet from MDH how long this site will continue, so we're just grateful it's continuing, because it's a great, it's easy. It's not like a swab test, so people are appreciating having just the saliva testing, and the results come fairly quickly. So there's other testing that can go on, and maybe Jamie will talk about that a little bit for those in higher ed.
As a follow-up to that, are the hours still the same for that?
The hours are still the same. You haven't seen anything that's changed, Jamie, on that, so. Yes, so we have that posted as well on the website.
So the hours, location and hours are posted on the county.
That's correct, posted on the county website. Yes. Okay, I'll let Jamie talk about more of our vaccine distribution.
Okay, I have a few things I would like to share, and I think I'll just start with that, the testing. And so that was one of the priorities addressed last week with Minnesota Department of Health, because we do have students going back to the classroom. We have universities coming back, and sports beginning, that they were really encouraging that population to test. And I do want to add that we do have the opportunity for the in-home testing as well. And so they're trying to make that a priority in Minnesota. Testing is an essential tool that we have to control COVID. and trying to make it as easy as possible. So we're fortunate that we have the saliva testing in town, but also the in-home kits could be ordered as well. Okay, so then I'll go to vaccines.
So Jamie, how do they order those?
You can order that online through Minnesota Department of Health. They ship it to you, and then you ship it back. And so, I haven't tried it.
Can we
but it's an
create a
easy
link
process.
to that, to our?
Yes, there should be one on our website,
Okay.
and there should be one on our Facebook page, but I'll double check and make sure that it's.
Very good, thank you.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So as far as vaccine in Clay County, I just want to start by saying that Kathy's leadership is ensuring that we are getting the vaccine out every week that we get. And so typically, we expect vaccine on Wednesday, and we schedule clinics to get it out. And we're doing a clinic today we have 500 doses. So there's a clinic of 500 doses today. We have scheduled 450 doses for Thursday. And those are our biggest clinics. We've had the maximum has been just over 200. So we've been doing at least 2 clinics a day. Things are going very well. It is by appointment only. We learn something new with each week and tweak our process, but we continue to focus on the Phase 1A, which is huge in Clay County. So our team has spent a lot of time and energy identifying healthcare workers and trying to get them connected, because we are inviting them to receive a vaccine through their employer. So that process, Minnesota Department of Health is now adding a link for healthcare providers on their website as of this week, which will help people, if they don't know where to go locally, they can go to the Minnesota Department of Health and say, I'm a healthcare provider in Clay County. They'll connect us to that. We were also notified by the Board of Nursing, so I'm assuming it will be for all licensed professionals that would be notified as well through their licensing agency. We've had businesses reach out through the Department of Human Services to us to notify us that they are in our community. So we've done a pretty thorough shake of what's out there to identify and continue to invite them. So for us, it's been healthcare providers, it has been residents in congregate care settings, and service providers in congregate care settings, of which we have a lot. So we've already done over 1,000 doses, and we're close to that for this week. We also have a partnership with our local clinics. We were able to access some vaccine, 475 doses that we were able to access because we don't have a hospital, and they are busy administering that vaccine this week and last week. So
Commissioner
Rodriguez-
Gross and I had an opportunity to see your distribution site. And it's pretty impressive, and it looks like you have it very safe setting, so it was nice to see that.
We've had a lot of compliments from people coming through, and then we had a meeting yesterday with the directors in our region, and we are ahead of the others in terms of the capacity that we're able to bring through our site. So we're thankful for having that as an opportunity for us.
And let me just mention with that site, it was the emergency manager for the city of Moorhead, Chad Stanglin, who offered that site, and of course, approved by the city of Moorhead. So it's great. It was a great site, and it was, we were able to ramp up right before our first clinic. So we appreciate that partnership with the city.
I've been in a unique group here, 75 and over, so Sanford has already called me and I've hit my shot, so
Okay,
they're already doing it, so.
good. Good.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Gross, we were so looking forward to providing your vaccine for you.
Okay.
Give him another
Happy.
flu shot. He likes it so much.
So I do have a few more things if that's.
Can we, Commissioner Ebringer has a question or comment?
Yeah, I don't want to jump in, you may be prepared to answer this, but I'm a little vague, and Frank, maybe he answered that for me, but most of us have a provider whose hospital is in North Dakota, and we're Minnesota residents. Does Minnesota provide that, Sanford or whatever hospital you're going to, do they provide vaccine for their share of the population that goes to that hospital? Or does the state of North Dakota allow Minnesota residents who are part of the whatever healthcare system it is to go to their locations and receive vaccine?
Correct. So on the North Dakota side, the Sanford Essentia Healthcare Systems are notifying their patients that they can receive vaccine even if they live on the Minnesota side. On the Minnesota side, vaccine is being distributed through the hospital systems right now. So the clinics in Clay County that have vaccine have received that from public health.
Okay,
I went to the South Side Moore Clinic.
okay.
And what will happen tomorrow remains to be seen. They're changing the system in the north, on the Minnesota side, and distribution through the hospital systems may look different.
So Commissioner Gross, that was the clinic in Moorhead,
Yeah, it's South.
which public health provided the vaccine for them to do.
Who provided these in?
Public health.
Like, that was,
is
they're,
that right?
they're a partner with us.
Oh,
And so we provided vaccine that was allocated to public health so they could get some out as well.
I know they called my wife to set up an appointment, and then she asked about me, and they did an additional one then, so
Okay,
it went real fast, though. It went,
good.
they called at 1:30, by 2:30 we were done.
Well, that's good.
Is it okay if I go
Yes,
on with a
continue
couple?
on.
I'll try to talk quickly, but just wanted to let you know that part of the information and questions that we've received through our agency, we did set up an automated vaccine information line, and that number is 218-299-7204, and I should say IT set that up for us. And when you call that number, it gives you an opportunity for information. If you press 1, where can I get a vaccine? So there's information. And then 2, information on the statewide pilot sites. And 3, information about what Clay County Public Health is doing for vaccination. And then the last is 0, to speak to a nurse. So we want to highlight that, and that is on our county website as well.
And that was a great recommendation. Oh, sorry.
Repeat it
7204.
299-7204.
7204.
And that was a great recommendation from our HR director, so.
Credit where credit is due. Then otherwise, I'll just talk about Minnesota in general. The governor announced yesterday that we need to move vaccine faster, so set the goal of that 90% of the vaccine in our hands is distributed within 72 hours, and that additional doses be used up within a week, and we've been meeting that and exceeding that in Clay County. So I'll leave that at that. Otherwise, they're continuing to refine the system for the statewide pilots, and people can actually do it's going on right now. There's a 24-hour period where you can register if you're 65 or over, and after that 25-hour period, they'll do a random drawing. So if you're drawn for a vaccine, you'll be notified that you can register for one of our sites, whichever one you register for, in Ferguson, our area, or Thief River Falls, and your name doesn't go out. So once you sign up, then you would be eligible for the next week's clinics as well.
I want to spend a little bit of time on that, if I will.
go ahead.
I had some conversations with folks that were confused on that. So you call today, correct?
You can call or you can register online for 24 hours.
Okay. So then you register, and then there's a drawing, and then you're told to go wherever, Thief River, Fergus Falls. If you're not drawn, you don't need to keep calling.
You don't need to keep calling, you don't need to register, you'll be in there for the next random drawing.
Okay.
They won't take your name out once you're in. And if you got in last week but weren't able, they ran out of vaccine, you're still in there, so.
And then if you receive your vaccination in Fargo at Sanford, it doesn't take your name out of that registration, correct?
That is correct. So that would be ideal. You would notify them if you were able to get the vaccine somewhere else.
And I think people were, thank you for having the number here for us to have citizens call in, but I think people were confused if, do I call this one instead of this one? How that worked.
So another thing that they're planning for this week, I believe, or they're planning it this week, is a large event for early childhood and K-12 at the Xcel Energy Center, and that is by invitation only. And so people would be notified by their employer if they had the ability to be vaccinated there. So, yeah, so that's, the only other thing is just in terms of the variant, there was a lot of information on the news today about the variant identified in Minnesota. And so we do have the Brazil variant in Minnesota. Our lab is awesome and picks up those strains, and also the UK. But Minnesota Department of Health is really focusing on that we need to do what we have been doing, get tested, continue to follow the guidance of social distancing, masking, staying home when you're sick, and do not travel unless it's essential. And I'll leave it at that.
So Kathy, going back to page 1 of your report, and on the bottom, it had the 529,000 vaccines received in Minnesota. And then we have 153,000 that went to the long-term care. Is that in addition to the 529, or is that part of the 529?
Yes, that's in addition.
So, doing the math, you know, we're as a state, we've received enough to do probably over 10% of the population. If I'm not mistaken, our population in Minnesota is about 5.5 million.
I think so.
5.2, I think it was.
Okay, so, and when did we start receiving vaccinations? It was sometime in January, wasn't it?
Correct. In Minnesota, are you
Yeah.
talking about? Yes, because I think it was toward the end of December probably that they were receiving vaccine. Start, the hospitals, yes, to start vaccinating in January.
And again, those numbers do not include some of our population that has received the vaccine in North Dakota. So
Correct.
probably even a higher number. Of course, these are available vaccines, not necessarily that they've been used, because we've only used 49% of them, but
Right,
hopefully, like you said, the governor is going to change that.
right,
All right.
yeah.
Well, I'd like to see us get to 20% a month. Nice.
Yep. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we really are pushing. We're in constant communication. They're hearing us loud and clear that, you know, we have the capacity. We have staff and we have nursing students and their professors that are willing to assist us. We have a few that extra vaccinators that came for our clinic today. So we're really pushing for a more local vaccine because we can distribute that. Plus with our partners, our 2 clinics. So every week we're on 2 or 3 calls and we're really pushing for vaccine. So we're continuing to request. We'll see where we go with that.
On behalf of our citizens, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Cayley, do you have a?
Yeah, Jamie, you mentioned the vaccine clinic that's going on. Did you say K to 12 educators? Is that who that was
At
for?
the XL, yes, and that is by appointment. So it'd be early childhood, daycare providers, early childhood, and K-12.
And my understanding with that is that's like a lottery system by their licensing agency.
Correct.
So it's not every,
Everyone,
okay, thank you.
you.
Steve, did you have something earlier? Did you? Got it covered? Okay. Well, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Kathy, we missed you yesterday, but we understand you were busy doing other important things, so. No problem.
Oh, you.
Maybe you'll get an opportunity Friday to join us. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is the update on Clay County Business Relief Program. Mr. Larson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Just wanted to provide an update on our business relief plan and where we are in the process. This past Sunday at 11:59, our application process did close. We received roughly 112 applicants, and our review team is I guess, continuing that process of looking at those applications. We certainly recognize that there's a need throughout Clay County for business relief. But I just want to point out, this round of business relief, again, was for businesses that were directly affected by COVID-19. Executive Order 20-99, specifically bars, restaurants, gyms, theaters, and event centers. In the coming days, all those that applied for this business relief will be receiving notification through an email. It's going to be coming through that same Seamless Docs email that they would have received when they did put in their application, so that should be what they're looking for. Successful applicants will also receive some additional information what will be coming in the future weeks. And so as Commissioner Campbell mentioned, our committee is meeting again this Friday. This first email that you receive will only notify you if you are receiving the grant or not. And there'll be further emails coming down in the coming weeks with what those allotments look like and making sure that all proper documentation is turned in. And so with that, I turn it over for any questions.
Commissioner Wojcik?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I believe yesterday we talked a little bit about reaching out to those that were not eligible for grant funding as well.
Commissioner Mojo, Commissioner Campbell, that's correct. We will be notifying all applicants whether they receive it or not.
Thank you.
So just to follow up for the board, of those 112 applicants, there were some that went online and applied that were clearly outside of the parameters set by the closer of the 2019 order, governor's order. So, and we were focused directly on that, and we continued to stay focused on those that were impacted based on that order. So I certainly, it's fine that people applied, but I think we're very limited on this round, so. Anything else, Steve, that you have?
No, Mr.
Want to
Chair.
touch on the food pool and lodging issue, or?
Oh, we certainly could.
To follow up really quick, in those applications for the board to know, we're pretty specific in some of the questions that we asked, and those businesses that did qualify, there is some significant hardship that had occurred, and we all knew that, but because of those questions, we really found out for sure, and that solidified what we were thinking. So it just does show how quickly we need to work to make sure we get those funds to the businesses affected. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Larson, you want to just touch on the food pool?
Sure,
and
Mr.
lodging,
Chair.
What we've been talking about to this point through our committee?
So last week, at board, this board approved referring licensing equivalents for food pool and lodging going back to 2021. And one of the tasks that this board asked was to look at what that funding would be and also where that source would come from. And so you do have a handout in front of you this morning that has the food pool and lodging licensing equivalents. The first 5 items on top have to do with the alcohol licensing that our county provides. And then also the bottom half, and that totals $11,000. And the bottom half of that section identifies we do the work both for Clay County and for the city of Moorhead. And so there's a grand total of $128,365.50. And so this board approved doing the reimbursement equivalent of the licensing fees of 6 months. And if you add up all the columns on the top and the bottom, you get a total of $69,683.75. Because we're looking back into 2020, and there is no 2021 dollar amount established for this, we would be looking to utilize our reserve funds to cover the 69,000 and change.
Well, that's one of the options. We still have the ability to use the 31,000.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In our business relief plan, the state allotted a specific dollar amount that states could utilize, or excuse me, counties could utilize in administering the business relief, and that was roughly $31,000.
We haven't come to that decision yet, or a recommendation. This
That's
board will
correct.
make that decision.
Right, that's correct.
But we haven't come to that point in recommending that yet, but that'll be coming hopefully really soon, so,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Thank you. In conversation with some businesses, and I was reaching out to make sure that folks knew about the deadline on Sunday evening. I had a conversation with a longtime existing business in rural Clay County and talking about the hardships that had been imposed on that business and bills that were piling up because they chose to keep staff on, and had mentioned that this board made a step to reimburse 6 months of these licensing fees, and the owner broke into tears and said, thank you very much. This may not appear to be a large number on paper, but for us, it really, really is significantly appreciated. And so I wanted this board to know that it's, there are people that are quite grateful for this, but I think it's definitely the least we can do.
Very well. Any other questions regarding this process? We'll hopefully have something on the agenda again for next week with some further updates based on what we talk about Friday, right? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
We'll move in to our next item, recommendation for appointment and update, and a PowerPoint presentation from the Housing Redevelopment Authority. And we have Dara Lee here. Good morning.
Good morning. See if I can get my double mask off or not. Thank you for having me. I know you've had a busy agenda, and I appreciate the time that you're willing to provide to us. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, as you said, we have an order of business and then some background information on our agency. The first item that I would ask that you consider is an appointment to the Clay County HRA Board of Commissioners. We have, as under state statute, we are required to have 5 to 7 commissioners on our board. They are appointed by the Clay County Commission, and their only criteria is they be Clay County representatives, or they residents, and that they represent geographic distribution of folks. So we have 2 fabulous commissioners on the HRA board who have reached their 3rd 5-year term limit, and those are Dale Raleigh and Ione Schultz, who have been dedicated public servants for the last 15 years, and most of their lives serving residents of Clay County. Ione Schultz was with the Ulen-Hitterdal Schools, and Dale has been with CAP LP and Rural Minnesota SEP and others, and we are extraordinarily grateful for their time over these years. They receive $35 per meeting and mileage reimbursement, and the rest of their time is all volunteer. And so, first of all, I really wanted to express our appreciation. They are two of the kindest, most humble people you will ever meet. But knowing that their terms were coming to an end, we did do an advertisement in September in all the local area papers, seeking interest for those who may be willing to serve on our board. We received 1 letter of interest from an extraordinarily well-qualified resident of rural Clay County, Tia Braseth, who has so much experience working with the populations that we serve in a variety of different contexts, and with housing specifically. We really couldn't have asked for a more qualified candidate to recommend to you, and so we would request that you consider her appointment.
I first want to put a thank you out to Dale and Ione for their years of service in that area. That's a long time to be working on a volunteer basis, pretty much. So thank you to them. Doing the math here, I see that you had 6, you went down to 4, we point one, that puts you at 5.
That is correct. And so if there are other folks who are interested,
But
always room.
I did notice that in your lists of places that you advertised, you did not include the extra. And I
we
think
did
that,
not.
yeah, and I think.
We'll have to add that to the list.
Well, I think that reaches a lot of Moorhead people.
Yep.
You know, so I hope you can maybe continue to search for, I think 6 isn't necessarily a good number,
Right.
but, you know, maybe getting a couple more on there might be good, but.
We had been at 7, and we knew we would have the 2 retirements, and so in order, or term ends, and so we tried to stagger those terms. The Board of Commissioners thought that 5 would be an adequate number at this time, but it would leave that flexibility. As you know, there's a Moorhead Public Housing Agency as well, so we try and get that geographic representation. We have 2 current Moorhead residents on our board, and so we try to have them from all over Clay County. We have a Glendon person. Tia is from the southeast corner, and then we have somebody who's from Holly.
I did read her qualifications too, and they're pretty impressive for
Yes,
this type of work, so. Okay. Well, we have a recommendation for appointment.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that we appoint Tia to this board.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Cayley, second by Commissioner Ebbinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay.
Well, once again, thank you. Chair Campbell has had the joy of listening to me go over a lot of this information for a number of years, but I am excited to be working with our new commissioners, Ebbinger and Cayley, as well as continuing with Commissioners Gross, Monjo, and Campbell. And so we are kind of the odd duck of local government, I would say, and a lot of folks say, just what the heck are you guys anyhow? And so I thought it might be good also for the public just to have an idea of exactly what we are, how we were created, and what we do. And I will try and do that in 10 minutes or less. So the first slide that I have up is actually a photo of our administrative office. It's located right on Highway 10 in downtown Dilworth, but many Clay County residents have driven by it literally hundreds and thousands of times and have no idea that we are there. So I decided we'd put the picture out there. We finally put a little bit more signage up. I always said we were the most nondescript government building out there. We're kind of like the CIA. But we don't want our services to be that much of a mystery. So that's where we're located. We are currently closed to the public except for by appointment. And we are always, though, happy to make accommodations in whatever way we can to serve the public. Our office has remained open and staffed throughout the pandemic, and we do have a doorbell in place for emergencies if folks show up. So basically, what is an HRA? We are a local unit of government. We're governed and we're created under state statute. There are county housing authorities, there are city housing authorities. One thing that you'll also hear sometimes are public housing agencies. Most HRAs are also public housing agencies. You're a public housing agency if you administer federal housing programs, which we do. So we're an HRA, but we're also a PHA because we like to make lots of initials and lots of confusion. In the state of Minnesota, there are 155 agencies in operation. And there are many different ways that they were established. And so they all have a few different operating examples, and you might hear different things when you travel about the state about how their HRA is related to the county, and I just wanted to let you know how ours is. So we are a separate entity. We are not part of Clay County government, which I think Steve is thankful for that. But we were created by the Clay County Commission, and as you just have seen, you appoint our Board of Commissioners. So we are kind of the child that has gone off on its own. What is our purpose? And this is under state statute, and that's to provide the sufficient supply. And this, we're not meeting this purpose, by the way. We have an insufficient supply at this point in time. We are also have the power to clear and redevelop blighted areas, to attempt to remedy the shortage of housing for low and moderate income residents, and to redevelop blighted areas in situations which private enterprise would not act without government participation or subsidy. And I'd like to give an example of that one. And when he was Chief Ebinger, who's Commissioner Ebinger now, worked with us on the redevelopment of the site that Gateway Gardens, at one of our apartment buildings, is now located on First Avenue North in Moorhead. At the point we took over that development, it was a former bulk fuel storage site with contaminated soil and open pond, which you could skim the oil and other substances still off of. And the remediation for the contamination on that site was around $1 million. It was not a project that the private market was interested in participating in at that time. We were able to put that project together and provide 24 units of housing for the very hardest to serve folks in Clay County, I would say, and it's staffed 24/7. And I've been pleased to see all of the wonderful development that's happened along First Avenue North since we took that project on. Having this unsightly, quite frankly, smelly kind of location along the way was not something that was attractive to the private market. So that is one time that we have tried to use that power. We are authorized to acquire and sell property, rehab, rehabilitate. We can issue bonds. At one point, we owned the Clay County Courthouse, the Clay County Jail, the Family Service Center, and a number of other buildings because all those bonds were issued through the HRA, and we were the owner. And so whenever we would get those tax assessment statements, we would kindly send them along to the administrator's office. After there were some state changes in state law, the county has been able to do its own capital planning and funding along that way. But we are able to do that as well. We're also able to perform needs assessment, operate the affordable housing, which is probably what people know us the most about, and assist folks pay rent or provide a down payment assistance program, which we would love to do if we had the funds available. On a more local level, our mission is to strengthen and revitalize communities by providing development opportunities, quality living, and services. And within the Housing Authority, we do have different divisions. We have a rental assistance division, a property management division, and a rehab services division. So we try to really look at all three areas. Our values are leadership, knowledge, collaboration, service, and making a difference. We are happy to have partnered with Clay County on a number of projects and with local, private, nonprofit, and other businesses and units of government throughout the years in order to try to make a difference in the lives of Clay County residents. Our statute, if you would like to read it, is Section 469. We're approaching our 46th birthday, which I'd be happy if that was the birthday I had coming up, but, and that is on February 4th of 1975, which we were created by the Clay County Commission. As we discussed before, we were governed by that 5 to 7 member board. And I don't know if folks know from the historical perspective that the Clay County Planning Department actually operated the Housing Authority for the first 6 years of its existence. We still have an employee on staff that started with the Planning Department. It'll be 43 years ago this May, and she will have now been with the HRA for 40 years in this coming May. So that was a steal that we made from the county back when we became a staffed entity, and kind of that we were given 6 years to grow up, and then we were sent out on our own. But in that time, it was the Clay County staff who actually developed the majority of the housing that we still own and operate. Right now, we're operating over 20 federal and state programs, as well as participating in about 5 different redevelopment programs with an annual budget of over $11 million. $6.5 million per year of those funds are reinvested directly back into the community by the rent payments to private landlords. Also, a significant portion of our funding is paid to local contractors, local businesses for supplies, and other service entities who we contract with. Each month, we're assisting approximately 1,000 low-income Clay County households. Most of that is through our rental assistance programs. We own and operate 176 units, and then we have about 900 units of rental assistance. So those folks are primarily going out into the private market, renting from private landlords, and we're helping them pay their rent. Right now, we have 18 full-time, 6 part-time, and we added on 6 temporary employees and interns on part and full-time basis during COVID because we have had about 25% of our staff who have been positive for COVID throughout the pandemic, as well as we have had numerous tenants, including some who have have passed away because of COVID. And so we felt the need to continue to provide services to those folks, and we wanted to make sure we were able to adequately staff. If somebody's toilet isn't working, you can't do that remotely. Somebody needs to go on site and get it fixed. And so we have been very grateful to our staff who has put in the time and the effort, and at least one of those staff was infected through exposure of a resident who did pass away. We went through this before, but you guys appoint our board. The other thing, we cooperate with benefits. We've been very grateful ever since the beginning. We have utilized the great human resources expertise of Clay County, and we used to be on the healthcare plan until at some point Blue Cross Blue Shield found out that we were a separate legal entity, and we have our own plan now. But we still partner with you on the other benefits, and we're grateful for that. We're also not eligible for Paris, so we have our own retirement policy. We have, as I mentioned, a couple of contracts directly with Clay County Social Services. Our housing supports program now supports 136 formerly long-term homeless disabled individuals who live throughout Clay County. And we have been working on a community living infrastructure grant, as in Clay County is the lead agency in a 10-county partnership. That we administer the grant, and we have 3 sub-grantees, so it's one of those collaborative efforts. Then this will be a question that comes up every once in a while. Why in the world are you levying, and why in the world are you coming to us with this information? It's because, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that we're the unique in as far as being a government entity that has the ability to levy local taxes and yet needs approval by another body. And I believe
You're not the only one, but.
Oh, there are more, okay. But I believe the reason for that is because our commission is not elected. It is appointed by this commission, and therefore this commission does that consent.
It's very similar to Watershed.
Okay. I didn't know if they needed the consent or not. Thank you. And please stop me at any point if you have questions. We went through this slide. It just talks about our great commissioners that we have, Cecil Johnson, Les Bakke, Mike Martin, John Wilkie, and we're excited to be having Tia join us on that group. This is the background on if we do levy, how it's authorized, the amount that we're able to levy. You will see that the maximum levy is over $1.2 million per year, but we have never levied any place close to the maximum. In fact, our total levies over the past 46 years have been less than 1 year's levy potential. A number of housing authorities across the state do levy on an annual basis. I've not come across any other housing authority that operates rehabilitation programs that does not levy annually. I'm not aware of any. We have tried to be as prudent as possible in using local resources to maximize funding from other sources. And so you'll see we have generated over $15 million in external resources to match those levy funds. The majority of those are federal and state tax dollars that are being returned to the citizens of Clay County. They have paid those taxes to the state and federal government, and it is our goal to make sure that the needs of the local residents are met through the programs that are available. The majority of that has been through the rehabilitation program, and you'll see listed there a variety of folks that we've been receiving funding through. We were just awarded $1 million from the Federal Home Loan Bank of Des Moines and about $7 million from the state of Minnesota, Minnesota Housing Finance, to rehabilitate a project in South Moorhead. It's Fieldcrest Townhomes located right by Queens Park. It is between Bellesley Boulevard and 34th Avenue South and 18th Street and 20th Street South. And it is a 41-year-old property that has significant needs. We acquired it 4 years ago with the intention of trying to improve the livability of that area of the community and to add additional services on site. So there will be staffed offices on site as well as some community rooms and access to try to be able to provide services and programming to the kids that live in that neighborhood and the adults that need assistance with improving their lives. So we're really excited to get going on that. The other project that I kind of highlighted here was our Homework Starts with Home program, where we are partnering with 14 school districts, including all school districts in Clay County, to try to end homelessness for families and children. We are making really great progress in that, and have established good relationships with our school districts. We're trying to catch them as far upstream as we can so that we prevent families from ending up in shelter or outside. That is our goal, and we will continue to work there till we accomplish that. And so this is, at the end, I just want to give you a few pictures since people are sick and tired of me talking and looking at the text. So these are some of the rehab projects that we've done over the years, just a few before and after. We do homeowner rehab, and these are just a couple of houses. A lot of our work is focused on accessibility and basic things to maintain the physical integrity of the structures so that they can remain affordable housing for the long term. So we're doing lots of windows, siding, furnaces, electrical system, plumbing, accessibility modifications, and basic improvements to the homes. This is a daycare in Barnesville, and you can't really tell a lot from the pictures, which is why we kind of did a close-up of some of the windows. But this is a daycare operating in Barnesville that serves a lot of families, and the building that they were in needed some accessibility and other improvements, and we were able to come in. We've also done commercial rehab in Hawley and in as well as Barnesville, and we have an application that is being submitted on behalf of the city of Dilworth, which some people may say we have self-interest in, since many of our commercial neighbors are potential applicants for the funding to improve their storefronts and that. This is a rental property, and it just shows the before and after there as well. So we're trying to provide as many affordable housing options as we can to our residents, through identifying those needs, the failures, and doing as much redevelopment as we can. Clay County continues to be one of the highest cost burden counties in the state for our senior citizens and other renters, and that's folks who are paying more than 50% of their income towards their rent. So I wish that I could say we have been successful at accomplishing all of these goals, but I can't. So we continue to strive to meet those objectives.
Hey, Stara, I just want to comment, you're doing great work. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the fact that you're able to levy such large dollars based on what you're given. But the point that I want to note is your last sentence is that the cost burden that we're seeing within certain demographics, not only for rent, but because of taxes. And I know that that's something this board takes very seriously. It's an important statistic for us to keep in the back of our mind, the additional burden that is put on to all of our citizens in Clay County for the cost of service. And so we appreciate it.
Thank you for your report.
Thank you for your time, I appreciate it. And thank you for the technical folks here at Clay County who managed to get this to work.
Thank you. Next, we have the discussion on County Extension Committee membership. Lisa.
Thank you. I think Lisa is on the call.
I am, I'm on.
Great. As you know, Commissioner Gross and I have been on the Extension Committee meeting, appointment for a long time. And there has been a variety of people that have served on that committee throughout that time. There's been a couple, for whatever reasons, now we have some new members that we need to talk about. And I just felt it was appropriate that Lisa come to kind of update us again on what the parameters are for membership. She is. For Lisa?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And thank you for allowing me to join you today. My name is Lisa Logering. I am the Regional Director in the Northwest for Extension. I serve the Roseau Regional Office, the Crookston Regional Office, and the Northern 9 county offices. My partner in the Northwest has been Ben Anderson. And you probably know that he resigned just before Christmas. Excuse me. So right now I'm also serving the Moorhead Regional Office as well as Clay, Hubbard, and Monoman counties. And so every one of our counties is a little bit unique. And so I've been enjoying the last couple of weeks meeting my staff in those other counties and regional office. And this is also a time when we do have members going off of our county extension committees. And so I've been touching base with commissioners and auditors and the point people I've been directed to talk with who might know who's coming onto the committee. And so I did reach out to Commissioner Mojo and asked about the one position that's been our master gardener position. And I think the conversation quickly, we realized that we were speaking a little bit different language and that that every county does some things a little bit differently. And it's not that it's wrong, but I thought it was a good time that we could just talk a little bit about what extension is and also just the terms that we have for our county extension committee. So you probably know that the mission of Extension is making a difference by connecting community needs with university resources to address critical issues in Minnesota. And our means of doing that is really working through our county extension committees in each of our 87 different counties. County extension committees are composed of 9 members at least. 2 of those members are county commissioners. One of them is the auditor or a delegate of the auditor. And in Clay County, that delegate is actually Heather Weber, who is the county support staff in the Moorhead Extension Office. That's a little bit different from me. Usually we do have the auditors or a designee from the auditor's office, but the auditor is permitted to designate anybody whom she would like to. Additionally, there are 6 other members on the County Extension Committee, and so typically what happens is the 5 of those members are actually appointed by the county commissioner, who is, well, just say the 5 each are from one different district. So we've got one person from District 1, one from 2, one from 3, 4, and 5. And when members are going out, that commissioner in that district would assign the next person from their own district. And that way we just have representation from across the whole county.
And the piece, Lisa, if you don't mind that I interrupt, is something that I don't think we have been doing at this board. I think that if I look at the cross-section of membership, we've been pretty good at making sure that we have all corners of the county represented, but wanted to know that maybe this is something that in the future we should continue to look at.
Yeah, and it's, it is something that the counties that I work with all do. It's not an absolute requirement, but we do ask that these county extension committees understand the needs of the communities that they're in the county that they're serving, and that there's a lot of different diversity that we're looking for, and whether that's geographic diversity or age or, sex or, socioeconomic. We're looking for all kinds of different people to serve on that county extension because extension really does serve everybody. I know a lot of times people think of it as the 4-H committee in some of my other counties where that is a huge part of it. That's the MOA position, sometimes the only MOA position, and so that is a large part of what extension does for counties. But we do have 4 different centers, and so we want to make sure that everybody has opportunities to take advantage of the programming within all of those centers. So that's one way that a lot of times those 5 positions are actually covered. And then the 6th position is an at-large position. And that position typically is, a person can be from anywhere. And usually the person would represent a program that is an extension program. So maybe it's a master gardener, or maybe it's a master naturalist, or somebody who has been sitting on the RSDP board, the Regional Sustainable Development Partnership Board. And so all of those positions are 3-year terms. The 3-year terms, typically you can serve up to 2 terms. I do have a couple of counties that do have 3-year terms, and I do have a couple of counties that don't have any term limits, which I don't necessarily recommend, but it depends on the county.
So Lisa, if I may jump in here. So part of what this county board needs to do is the at-large member for Clay County that has been serving has been Lynn Flanders, who is part of our Master Gardener program. She has really been a great advocate for that program specifically because of the capital changes that have happened here. She's really helped with that. I think Commissioner Ebinger can attest that she's I think he married up, if I can put it kindly. But anyway, so we need to make a motion to appoint a person in that capacity that has shown interest, correct?
That's correct. And I know both Lynn as well as Randy had suggested Kristen Volz, who's another master gardener. And she did say that she would serve if she was appointed.
Okay. Then I think if it's appropriate at this time, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to appoint Kristen Volz to that at-large membership of the committee.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gross. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Okay. Lisa, you
Wonderful.
can.
I will reach out to her and invite her to our next meeting.
Thank you. So
yes, thank you.
in our discussion, we did find that there's been another vacancy, correct, on the board?
Are you talking about the city council position?
Correct.
Okay, so, and this is new to me too, and I did reach out to see if anybody else does it this way, and it's not that it's wrong, but it is a different way to do it. There's been one position on the County Extension Committee that has been a city council position, or a city council appointed position apparently. And I did reach out to Ben to see a little bit more of the history, and he said that typically that person has been serving on the County Extension Committee as long as they are a city councilor. But it does, I did get a message from the city last week saying that Shelley Dahlquist would be reappointed. She was on last year and would be appointed again this year. So, and I'm not saying that's, a good thing or a bad thing to be doing it that way. I'm just explaining that it's a little bit different than what we do elsewhere in the state.
Okay, good, because I think last week you thought maybe she had resigned from it.
I knew that the expiry on my records as far as the date that she had, her term date, it was given as 2020. But after further understanding what that position is about, which is different than I have,
Okay.
I do understand that she's been reappointed.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anything further?
Anything else, Lisa?
I don't think so. I just appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you're doing in Ben's absence as we look for that new employee.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to request for county to approve resolution 2021-12 to sponsor another federal recreational trail grant program. And we have Greg Stroman. Is he online? Okay, then Steve, are you going to handle this for him? All right. We certainly have within our packet attachment F, which talks about the request.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Each year, the Clay County Trailblazer Snowmobile Club submits a grant application to the Minnesota DNR, and that application requires support from this board. And so they come before us each year for that request. The resolution before you this morning allows myself to be the financial or fiscal agent for the funds that are received through the state. Greg comes in on annual, throughout the winter, provides the documents, and they are able to receive the reimbursement based on that required documentation. So with that, I would ask if there are any questions.
There's no questions, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-12.
By Commissioner Gross,
Second.
second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, our next item is the annual department update from our assessor's office. Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. We'll start off with our staffing. We have a department of 5 positions. We have 2 full-time staff appraisers who do basically all out county, except for, of course, the city of Moorhead and 1 jurisdiction. And we have then an office associate, and we also have a position of a data coordinator / appraiser. That one is unfilled at this time. We've had a little bit of difficulty keeping a person in that position, but we will try again early spring to see if we can get that filled, and then the county assessor's position. Work that was completed for the 2021 mass appraisal consisted of doing 3 cities, Barnesville, Comstock, and Glendon, and we also completed 4 townships, Cragness, Mullen, Moorhead, and Oakport. And that totaled to be about 3,400 parcels, which met our quintile plan. We did on-site visits to all the improved parcels, and then the unimproved parcels, we use our GIS capabilities to review the tillable land and building sites and trees and brush and stuff like that. So we use the GIS to double check our acreage on that. Along with the mass appraisal, we also conducted follow-up on zoning certificates and building permits, and that impacted about 675 parcels. Right now, we're working on setting rates then for that 21 assessment. We use our sales ratio study of sales that come through October of 2019 through the end of September of 2020. And we look at ratios then for our 5 major categories, which are agricultural, residential, commercial, industrial, and apartments. Along with setting those, our next step would be then for the taxpayer to have their opportunity to appeal those valuations. So we are working on setting our schedule for our local boards of appeal and equalization. Last year, we had 7 jurisdictions who took advantage of the the local board meetings. As of right now, we only have 5 of those jurisdictions with trained members. So we will check on February 2nd to see if those 2 other jurisdictions have received training. If not, then there'll only be 5. And all the other jurisdictions then will go to an open book environment. With that, we also then schedule the County Board of Equalization, and we have that tentatively scheduled for June 15th to start at 6:30. And in the past, we've always had a motion from your board to accept that date.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to appoint that meeting as provided.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Mojo,
Second.
second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion on that?
Do we need to move our commissioner meeting that day too?
We typically do.
Should we include that in the
The
motion?
motion would provide that as well. I don't know if it's 5:30 or 5.
Yeah, because we probably do need to set a time.
Generally, we've set it an hour before.
Okay, my motion would be 5:30 for that.
Does that meet with your second?
Second, yes.
Okay, all right, very good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion
Okay.
carried. That's
I'd
done.
also like to talk a little bit about tax court. Presently, at this time, we have 4 different entities that have filed. Walmart has filed, and that's a pay 20 valuation that they're looking at, and the valuation that we have on that is approximately $9.6 million. We also have the CVS in Dilworth that has filed. They have a pay 19 and a pay 20 petition out there with approximate value of $1.8 million. We have the 30th Avenue Partners. They have a pay 20 petition, roughly $1.2 million. The pay 19 was just recently withdrawn. And then we have Menards, who has a pay 19 petition and roughly $8.5 million. The pay 20 petition was also recently withdrawn. We work with the county attorney's office as well as the city of Moorhead staff to work through these. And again, we can't plan for these, we just have to react when people file them. So we'll go
So
forward.
Nancy, for our new commissioners, what they're doing is they're contesting their valuations.
Correct, yes. Evaluation or classification.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, we work with the city of Moorhead on these cases as well. Since one is located in Dilworth, there have been made aware of these petitions as well as the 2 school districts that are impacted. They also are aware of these pending litigations that are out there. And the last thing is, our staff is starting to prepare and kind of get excited about our move, and so we're anxious for March to be here and make that big transition to our new space.
Any other questions from Nancy?
Say, Nancy, maybe could you touch on with COVID-19, talk to the citizens about who are going to be assessed value this year, how maybe that'll look different from other years?
I've been in touch with the jurisdictions that we have our local boards with. I've heard back from several, and they plan to hold their meetings the same as they did. Some had the capability to do virtual, either through, a phone call in. What we would request, if the courthouse is still by appointment at that time, that we will handle it like we did last year, have appointments for people to come in and come to us with those open book concerns for the other jurisdictions. But as far as I know, things will go pretty much like last year. They will have the opportunity to hold them virtually if they wish.
Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have a request for approval for sponsoring agency resolutions on local improvement grants.
Good morning.
Engineer, Mr. Overbo, good morning.
We have been requested by 2 of the small cities in Clay County to sponsor some of their local road improvement grant applications. The city of Hawley is looking at 3 separate applications within their city, one on 15th Street. I believe that's one just north of the grocery store that's made some news lately with some of their auto-seal issues and different things. So they're looking at 3,500 feet on 15th Street, 700 feet on 8th Street, which is kind of over by the car dealership, back in their industrial park area, and then 2,300 feet kind of back in that same area in the industrial park. So they've got request that we sponsor 3 applications there, and then the city of Dilworth is looking at an application of about almost a mile on 7th Street, which is on the east side of town in their newer development area. Carries a lot of traffic between several neighborhoods. And I guess we have sponsored these before. They do not have any financial impact on the county. We just need to make sure that the state aid rules are followed, and then the MnDOT works as the county's the fiscal agent, so the funds actually come through the county to the contractor if they get chosen.
Well, we probably need to do these individually, so if you look at, in the packet, we have Resolution 2021-08. Is there a motion to approve that resolution?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Any questions on Resolution 2021-09 for Dave?
Make a motion to approve 2021-09.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We'll move in. Any questions regarding Resolution 2021-10?
I'll offer approval of Resolution 2021-10.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Gross. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Any questions regarding Resolution 2021-11?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo on 2021-11. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. And I know, Dave, you and I had talked a little bit, and you kind of want to give a shout out to Dr. Zimmerman.
Right. I was asked to participate in a little video that put together. I don't know if everybody's heard, but our City of Moorhead engineer has been recognized as Municipal City Engineer of the Year. Very nice award, very well deserving. I think the work that he does is fantastic. He does, basically does 2 jobs. And then from our standpoint, the cooperation that we've had on projects working with Dr. Bob have been second to none. Very, very easy to work with. He's, I've worked with him for the 20 years I've been here, and any questions I've ever had, or any type mentorship type things, he's always been there, and his advice is sound. And so tomorrow, I think at 11:50, there's a little Zoom meeting. I don't know if Steve, if you wanted to share that with the commissioners or not, but it should be pretty exciting, and I wish him the best, and like I said, very well deserving.
Well, I know, I can tell you, I've worked with him for many years on different things, and I've been happy in the past to also write letters of recommendation for him to get this award, and I'm glad it's happened. And so congratulations to Dr. Zimmerman, and thank you for bringing it to our attention here. Commissioner Ebinger.
Yeah, I'd be remiss. I worked with Bob for 13 years on the staff of Moorhead, and he carried us through the flood of '09. We had some scary moments there, and I was thoroughly impressed with his professional knowledge and the fact he's a great partner, a great team player, and I was very happy to see him get this award.
Thank you. All right, Dave, anything else for us this morning?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, we'll move into our committee reports, and Jenny, we'll start with you this morning, Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Last week, I attended the Red River Water Management Joint Board. Good information from all parties. They're certainly staying busy, even in a pandemic, so good updates. I also attended the Red River Basin Commission Conference, their Land and Water International Summit. That also was hosted virtually, and there were some technical difficulties, but once we got through that, man, they really had some good presentations, specifically on the Sandhill Lake Dam project and the Lawns to Legumes project in Minnesota. That pilot project has been quite popular in Minnesota with pollinator habitat, so that was of note there. And there really was about 15 or 20 different presentations on all the water management projects going on within the basin, and good work from all of them there. I also attended that day the MetroCog Policy Board meeting. We had our election of officers and talked about different items on the consent agenda, one of which included an amendment to the Metro Grow 2045 plan. We had public comment opportunity, which no one was present for, but we did have the 2021 FM Metro area-wide traffic count request for proposals, added some additional accounting equipment for that. So it was a shorter meeting than usual, but they continue good work and collaboration. As you know, we are working with MetroCog on our comp plan. The meetings will start next week, I believe. I attended yesterday the Cass Clay Food Partners Steering Committee meeting, a follow-up to our joint board meeting the week prior, continuing to talk about how to present as much information as possible to the board on items that or work that we've already completed and the blueprints that are existing, but also talking about our community needs during COVID. There's a Blazing Trails, a presentation through the Minnesota, another acronym, MISA, Minnesota Crop Sciences or something Association. Anyhow, there's a training on ordinances and laws as they propose, sorry, I cannot speak, how they relate to ordinances, in a training that I thought would be helpful for all of the planning commissioners for Clay County, but also the other jurisdictions. So that is, their training's coming up, and Matt Jacobson will reach out to all of our commissioners, planning commissioners for that. Yesterday, I hosted with the Association of Minnesota Counties a coffee and conversation with the Dean of Minnesota Extension, Dean Durgan, update on what Extension is doing during the pandemic and how it's continuing to meet the needs of the university and Extension statewide. They're really keeping busy. There have been an increase in enrollments for 4-H, but there is a concerning trend of a decrease within our livestock youth, and that's something that they were hoping they wouldn't see, but due to COVID and virtual showcases, that certainly can be justified. So they are working at hiring 2 livestock outreach coordinators statewide to help with that. They are also staying busy with SNAP educators. Rosie works in our Clay County Regional Office. SNAP educators working statewide with reaching out to as many people as possible. Yesterday, I also had the CARES Act committee meeting where we addressed the applications that had come in. Our staff really worked hard to review all of those applications with the close that had happened on Sunday night, so that we could have that meeting yesterday. And it wasn't just county staff, it was also municipality staff from the other cities in Clay County. We will continue to look at those applications and hoping that we'll be able to act on that very shortly. Last night, I also attended the Buffalo Red Watershed District meeting. They did have an HR committee meeting that I was not able to attend because it wasn't held virtual. But they did talk, there'd been some documents that they'd received in terms of the FM Diversion Authority lawsuit. Their attorney would be looking at that with a action item coming later. And talked about the Glendon East tributary. They had an engineer's report, and they did make a motion to move forward on those, and had some preliminary site discussion on a project in the city of Wolverton. They're moving forward with some sort of project there, but didn't want to do anything that would be negated by the Diversion Authority project. So they wanted to make sure and collaborate on that, and talked about a wetland banking project in Otter Tail, and also a south branch of the Buffalo River Phase 1. In their Citizens to be Heard, they did add an action item from their HR committee report that was to move forward in the next 90 days to sever the HR contract with Houston Engineering and make those 4 employees district watershed employees. Because I didn't hear the conversation that had happened at the HR committee, I did request that all financial implications that will be incurred because of that for operating 2021 and beyond be provided to the counties. So Steve, when you receive that, if you could please forward that to all of us, as I'm concerned if there's additional money that will be spent on that, that's dollars that will not be used for projects. And I believe that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Mojo. I just want to point out that we're fortunate that you're, with your position on the state extension, that your voice for rural Minnesota is well heard, and it's extremely important to us. So thank you for that. We'll move on. Commissioner Ebinger.
Last week, on the 20th and the 21st, I virtually attended the County Government 101 that AMC sponsors. First day, we had a trust keynote speaker, David Horsager, and Trust and Leadership. We had a good overview of the AMC from the Executive Director, Julie Ring. Roles and responsibilities on the next day. Robin Sykes presented a very good overview for new commissioners on the role of MCIT, and we had an ethics presentation by Scott Anderson, attorney. On the 20th, I attended a briefing with Jason McCoy and Rory Beal with County Health. They gave both myself and Commissioner Colley an update on some of the issues involving vaping and some local ordinances that are under consideration, as well as some state legislation that's pending on flavored tobacco. The following day, on the 21st, we had a virtual meeting with the Clay County Substance Abuse Committee. Again, there was a discussion on tobacco use and some of the increases we've seen in our area and the vaping issues. Also, an overview of the pending Winkler bill, the marijuana legalization that is pending right now with the state. I think it's still in committee. And he also indicated there was an end to the Clearway funding. There's some additional funding they're going to use to keep operations rolling, but they're going to have to seek funding of the position that they have right now through other grants. Also later that day, on the 21st, I had a virtual meeting with Joe Rosso, the Executive Director of Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC, just to kind of get to know you meeting. And the following morning, we had a orientation with all new board members virtually on the 22nd. Included in that was the chair, Judd Graham from Bremer Bank. And they basically we introduced ourselves, covered the mission, the support of primary sector businesses in the area by the EDC, an overview of some of their measurements, their goals, and their boards of governance. On the 21st, I also had my first meeting with the Lake Agassiz Regional Library Board. They swore me in virtually. Later, we approved the budget for the year. They do have a legislative initiative they're looking at to try and readjust some state funding allocations and stabilize their funding through the reduction of the equalization formula that very much favors the metro areas. We also approved the meeting schedule for the year and discussed committee assignments. On the 22nd, I met with James O'Donnell. I had missed the meeting because of conflicts last week. He's the director of the West Central Juvenile Unit, our juvenile facility. I had missed the meeting, and I wanted to get with him and get an update on that, which gave me a good overview of the operation, and then a tour of the center. And I hope the public realizes what a gem we've got in that facility. I know my predecessor, Commissioner Whalen and Commissioner Campbell, have done a lot of work to get that together, but we have got a tremendous facility that is giving kids that are in a very vulnerable position an opportunity to turn their lives around. Some of the kids in there, they don't admit it, but some of the staff explained the relief these kids have to come into a safe facility where they're not subject to assault, to where they can go to school, to where they can interact with other kids. I was very impressed with the transitional unit. You have young men and women that are about to leave the juvenile system, and they're given an opportunity to work together as a group, prepare their own food, learn how to shop, learn how to manage their money. We just do so much more than just incarcerate kids here. Sheriff Laney over in Cass County, back when I was in my former occupation, would go on and on about how proud he was that he could get their juvenile population in our facility, and they paid for it, and they paid for the expansion, simply because the Minnesota side and this facility offered those kids an opportunity. They got an education. They had a safe environment. They had an opportunity to engage in things other than just sit in a jail cell and be bored. So I went away with a very good impression of what we're doing there, and I'm grateful of the efforts of that whole staff. And that was my week.
Thank you, Commissioner Ebinger, I'll follow up with a couple of things on that a little bit. I want to go back to Commissioner Moser. She has one more thing that she...
Report last week, I really did have significant discussions with citizens and staff on the concerns that we'd seen out at the DMV. The media, several different agencies had reached out to me to discuss that. And I want to publicly say that our staff, in all of those complaints that I was getting, none of them included complaints about staff. They are always cheerful and kind and go above and beyond. And so I want the public to know that that staff is really working really hard. They're also really open to the changes that we've suggested to help streamline some process. And one individual who reached out last week that had some concerns about wait times reported yesterday that she had an appointment and all the needed documents for her appointment, and even had a couple extra in case, and was out of the DMV in 23 minutes. And so that really is a testament to the adjustments that are being made out there. And so I want to extend my gratitude to our staff, but also acknowledge that our public has been patient for a while for those to come through. So thanks to them on that. And then the other piece that I had is, as I've been assigned the Prairie Lakes committee assignment, that meeting is on Tuesdays, or on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. And the Wednesday of the month that is in direct conflict with the One Watershed, One Plan Policy Committee that I've been assigned. And I realize that that's kind of wrapping up with the watershed, and Commissioner Gross has been part of that as well. But I don't know if we want to add that to somebody else's, since I will not be able to make that policy committee.
Well, that's an alternate position. That's your, with Prairie Lakes?
No, not I don't want to, I will keep Prairie Lakes.
Oh,
But
okay.
both Commissioner Gross and I are we're main members. It's not alternate.
Yeah, okay, I thought.
No, I'm sorry. No,
That you,
no, so I'm thinking it would probably be appropriate to appoint somebody else to the One Watershed, One Plan piece.
That may be the last meeting, though, isn't it?
Well, I just noticed there's another meeting in February on the 24th.
well, why don't we just research that and see what their intentions are for that to continue, and if so, we'll get somebody, we can talk about this again next week.
Okay.
Let's research that. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Kaylee.
I also attended the AMC County Government 101 training on Wednesday, the 20th, and Thursday, the 21st. I think you reported enough on that, so I'll speed ahead here. And again, with Commissioner Ebbinger, I also attended that substance abuse prevention meeting where we learned about the health effects of vaping and some efforts that they have coming up to get our kids to stop using these products. It is an epidemic causing serious health problems for our youth. On Wednesday, the 20th, I also attended the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County meeting. The Cultural Society ended a very hard year able to pay their bills, thanks in no small part to some generous donations, and with the help of a PPP loan, they were able to keep their full-time staff. The museum will be reopening on February 1st, and there will be a special exhibition celebrating the 150th anniversary of Clay County, which will open on May 1st. The board is currently in negotiations with the city to begin paying some rent. On Thursday, the 21st, I also attended that MetroCog Policy Board meeting with Jenny. I'm just trying to get a handle on all of the moving parts and who does what, so that was a very interesting meeting. Yesterday, so Monday the 25th, I had a meeting with the chair of the law library to just get a real feel for what the history of that resource has been for our county, what resources there are available, and the public should know that they have access to research materials for justice at the courthouse and at MSUM, and there is also a terminal within the jail that our folks in there can use as well. So,
Commissioner Kaylee, that, right now, because of COVID, that's by appointment only, isn't it? To use
within the
for use of the
courthouse?
law library?
yes, but we need to keep them in the loop in any discussions as we move towards opening the courthouse up in the future, because our citizens should have access to those materials whenever possible. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Gross.
At the building committee last week, we met with the city of Moorhead on some exchange of property with the city, with the county and with the city of Moorhead for the solid waste facility that we're going to put in there. So that's still ongoing, and anyway, we start working on that. Other than that, the only other thing I have to report on is on the DMV. We had some comment from Jenny concerning how long it takes. I went there last week. I got my taps, and it took me about 3-4 minutes by the time to check in and check out again. So I must have hit it at the right time. So it didn't take me very long. And I know my neighbor, he also went in there later on, and it took him about 5 minutes. So it's not always that long. It's just, I realize people get it at, sometimes there's a pile up there, but there's a lot of situations where that place is working out very good. Thank you.
I think the procrastinators sometime are the ones who.
Yeah, don't go there in the
end up
last
with
day of
the
the month.
wait.
Yeah, don't go there the last day of the month, I can tell you that.
Or a Friday. Right?
Or Friday.
Yeah, it's busy. All right, thank you for the report. I'll give my report. Again, I also had the building committee meeting with the city of Moorhead that Commissioner Gross just talked about, and there are some discussions about some interest in maybe doing some land swap. It's early on in some discussions. But we continue to meet on that, and hopefully we'll be able to report back soon, and how that might interact and change, or maybe change how the acreage would be at our new site for the transfer station. Then on Thursday, the 21st, we had the West Central Juvenile meeting, and that went really well. I do want to point out that there's one area that I've been working on since 2007 that we haven't been successful with, but it's coming to the, we're bringing it back up again, and that deals with MA in our youth facilities. And for those that don't know, once in our secure facility, once a youth goes in there, and if they had MA before they went in there, the MA goes away once they get in there. And so if we end up with a significant health issue, it becomes the responsibility of the county to pay that. The same thing applies to our adult correctional facilities. And, you know, I know I've been saying this since 2007, that we need to try to get the state to make changes there so that MA does not go away for these people. And, you know, just because they're in there, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden the county should be responsible for their health issues. So we had a significant conversation about that as our 10-member counties from Minnesota. Obviously, Cass County doesn't apply, but and what we're looking for, and we're hoping that all 10 county boards will be on board with sending a message to the state. Those of you who, and I know Commissioner Ebinger, you're on the Public Safety Committee for AMC, and I believe, are you on the Health and Human Services, Commissioner Cayley? So I think those are two areas where, maybe we can try to suggest some revisiting of that. And I think we need to be in touch with our local legislatures to see about how we can make those changes to that. It's a significant risk to counties in that regard. If somebody were to have an extremely, illness in there, that could be devastating to a county. So, and you could have a COVID deal going on right now that's in one of those facilities, and it's the responsibility of the county to handle whatever. If somebody's in ICU for 2 weeks, it gets pretty expensive. So anyway, so I think, and all 10 counties are going, and then James is also working with the other facilities in the state too to put together this. I think we're going to get really good support amongst counties on this issue, and hopefully we won't have to wait another 14 years to get it done. So that was the important topic of the day. I do want to, Commissioner Ebinger, I really appreciate your report and what you found and what you see going on in that facility, because it is amazing. And the reason we're up to the capacity that we are, it's because of what we do. And we're having kids in there from across the state, and we're seeing revenues. We're going to probably be $1 million revenues over expenses from that facility again for 2020. And the reason for that is that we have non-member counties who are seeing exactly what you talked about. And it's what we do for the kids that we happen to have. We actually have Moorhead Public Schools in that facility on a daily basis teaching these kids. And we're not just locking them up and throwing away the keys and putting them in a room and letting them do their time. We're doing similar to what our judge talked about this morning in the adult deal. So it's a great deal, and I'm glad you got the opportunity and I'm glad you're going to be part of that group with your background. I will move on then to on Monday the 25th in the morning, we had a DA executive committee meeting. A few things there. We had hoped to get about $200 million, a little over $200 million in the core financial plan for the next year, and we were able to get 115 million, so it fell a little bit short. Our goal is for that project is still to work on the I-29 road raise that would be associated and needed with that project. Unfortunately, right now, it would not fund where we wanted to be with the Red River control structure. However, there's still going to be significant work done by our federal legislations in both North Dakota and Minnesota to see if we can't do something with that. But so the intention is still to move full speed ahead with those issues. We have all of the land rights in hand for which was needed in order to construct the diversion channel itself. I think they said with the exception of one property that they're close to. So as I mentioned at our last meeting, we're looking at doing letting the P3 award in April, and we could not let that award without having all of the land rights in place. So we're really moving along in the right direction in regards to that as well. The settlement, the lawsuits that are involved, they're hoping to be completed by February. And then another real significant milestone, those of you, I don't know if you're aware of the WIFIA program that we're working on. WIFIA is a program where it's part of our financial package, and we have been, the OMB has signed off on our $569 million loan application, so that is in place, and we're looking at interest rates as low as 1.6 to 2%, and that would be over 40 years, and of course that is, that loan would be paid back primarily by the City of Fargo and Cass County's sales taxes that they've implemented for the purpose of that project. So that's really good news. They will actually not close on it till after the P3 contract is awarded, which I mentioned is in April. And the reason they don't want to do that, because based on what that final bid might be, they've even left the door open if we had to adjust that loan upwards or downwards. That's why they didn't want to close on that at that point in time until that bid is in. Then that same day, we did have our CARES meeting. I still refer to it as CARES, Business Relief, latest one. And as Commissioner Moser said, I really want to give a shout out to our staff that's been working on this with us. There are a lot of complicated issues in here, and to try to, unlike the first round that we went through, it was kind of we wanted to treat everybody the same based on what we had to work with there, and this one we're seeing such a significant difference in loss of revenue, for example, from smaller businesses to larger ones, that we're trying to come up with a fair system for that. So and our staff is really working hard on that. And I believe that concludes my report. Mr. Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, I had multiple conversation with Ben Madsen from Construction Engineers about the different campus projects they are working on. That afternoon, I met with Mark Sloan in regards to our business relief program. On Wednesday, we had county management. We had county an update from Kathy on COVID. We discussed the intergovernmental retreat and again, making sure we're signed up for department updates, as we saw Nancy here this morning. That afternoon, I met with Joe and Brian in discussing some of the space needs from the court's perspective. The following day, met with Lori Johnson on a series of issues, and also Darren. That afternoon, I made a number of telephone calls to city representatives about the business relief program, and also called directly many of our rural counties that weren't necessarily, didn't have participation, I guess, at our table from their city leaders. And so making sure that we tried to get as many people to apply as possible. Later that afternoon, spent just piggybacking off the conversation of the DMV, I spent some additional time out the DMV that day. It was a very good wait time. And again, just kind of touching base on what's been shared, specifically with the real IDs. You know, we originally they were due last October, or they had to be done by October. It got pushed to this October. Just to kind of give our citizens a perspective, we have about 14 slots per day to do that real ID. And so if you come in without an appointment, that real ID is scheduled for about 45 minutes. And so some of the days that we've had some different issues out there, we had between 15 and 18 walk-ups that day. So if you figure 18 walk-ups in addition to the 15 that we have, you know, you're potentially there between 25 to 45 minutes. That's really gonna look at. So I bring that up to encourage our citizens to utilize that appointment piece. And I do recognize that we are, in real IDs, we are scheduled out a number of weeks. But I would encourage you to do that whenever possible. Again, met with Dan Molly and City of Moorhead on a series of different issues. On the 22nd, I went with Joe. We were out to the Government Center. I think they're making some positive steps out there. We also met on beginning to look at some of what our moving process will look like. We're going to continue to maintain all of our services here until we receive some notification, but citizens will see, beginning as early as tomorrow, some different moving trucks that are going to be starting to take different things out to the Government Center. Yesterday, again, met with Joe Olson and the Business Relief Committee that's been spoken about. Also, last week I did have some different interviews with WDAY, the forum, about our business relief program, DMV concerns, and also the CARES funding information. Just following up from our board meeting last week with our state auditor, Bob Johnson, he did confirm that the increase that we saw in the conservation of natural resources from 2019 was due to Buffalo Ed Watershed Clay Wilkin County Road 1 project. That was roughly $1.6 million. And also there was a purchase of a bulldozer through our gravel tax refund resources that we use for reclamation of our gravel pits. And so that was the increase there. Again, just a reminder, our intergovernment retreat is this Friday. You can register if you have not, up until noon on Thursday. I think that if you have registered now, you would have received your link to the virtual meeting. If not, you can certainly reach out to us, and we'll help you with that. And just lastly, we've been asked by the City of Moorhead to plug their Onward Moorhead on their comprehensive plan. Meeting is going to take place virtually on Wednesday from 5 to 6:30 on Zoom. And so if you want additional information on that, you can go to the City of Moorhead website. They'd like to get as much citizen involvement as possible. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Brian, do you have anything for us? Colleen, anything? All right, we are adjourned.